I don't know how many times I've spoken in my life. Thousands, I know, counting 20 years of various churches. And I think 3 weeks not speaking on a Sunday was probably about the longest I've ever gone in 20 years. It felt kind of odd, but not as odd as sitting here this morning. For some reason, it just feels like, When I hadn't intended to be gone 3 weeks. I intended to be gone one and then back one and gone one. But I got sick in the middle, had a summer cold, as a lot of people have been having lately, and then I very nicely, politely gave it to Marty. I swear we were at a restaurant in San Francisco. It's called the Stinking Rose, which Rick, our video guy, turned me on to. Their slogan is, "We flavor our garlic with food." And it cured me and took her down all in one fell swoop. And so Marty got sick too. But the thing is, Rick always asks me, because he likes to put up a slide. Go ahead and put one up, the slide Rick created for today. He said, "What do you want to talk about 3 weeks ago?" Because we had just finished Edwin Gaines' book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And a lot of that has to do with happy relationships. One aspect of prosperity is very good relationships. And so I said I wanted to talk about that. And 3 weeks later, it's not that I didn't have time to write anything new. It's just that I am more and more and more convinced that what we need to talk about is relationships. I've said before that relationships are a divergent problem. They diverge. They never completely come together. You never completely get it all together, and it's because people grow and people change. And since relationships are made up of people, then relationships do what? They change. They always evolve. Marty is changing all the time. Marty weighs 98 pounds, and she carries a purse that weighs 3 times that. I don't know why or what she needs. I don't dare look in there. My mother taught me well. I don't look in her purse, but she carries this monstrous purse. But recently she changed. She stopped carrying a monstrous purse. She started carrying a monstrous backpack. Why? Because I'll carry a backpack. You see, people change, the relationship changes. Yeah, I will not walk around Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco with a purse, but I'll sling her backpack over my shoulder, and she knows it. We are always changing. Our relationships are changing. I love to look at the Old Testament and the stories back there because most of us know these stories. It's not that I'm trying to push or any one particular religion. You all know that. It's just that we know these stories. And one of the first stories in the Bible is about a relationship issue between two brothers. Who are they? Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. You know, the thing about Old Testament stories and about parables is I see them as mysteries. And most of them, if you look at them, what's called eschatologically, which means having to do with the times in which it happened, then you find out that they have a very specific and deeper meaning. This is one that's always bugged me. Cain does what to Abel? He kills him, right? Here's the story, if you don't recall. Cain comes in, he is a farmer. He is a farmer. Abel is a shepherd. Cain comes in to tithe to God, to give his portion to God, and so he comes in and brings fruit. Abel comes in and brings a young lamb, brings the fat lamb, it says. God, it says, is pleased with Cain, or with Abel, but he is not pleased with Cain. Now that has bugged me forever. And people use this, by the way, I will just disclose to everyone here and on camera, I'm vegan, but is God pushing a meat agenda here? Seriously, that people have looked at the Bible that way and sort of said, it looks like God's saying that we need to eat meat. And then doing some research, I actually figured out, see, the Bible, the Old Testament, was written by two different groups of people. You had the Israelites and the Judeans. They split apart. The sacred one and only chosen people of God got mad at each other and split in half. Take that in for a second, okay? That was happening way back then. It is still happening today. They were actually two different kingdoms for about 600 years, and they all wrote their own stories. And when they got back together, they just put the stories together. They just put the stories together, and so they ended up this way. The people who wrote this story were descendants of Seth, the younger brother of Cain and Abel. Obviously, they were nomadic shepherds just like Cain was. Abel was a guy who sat there and tilled the ground. Well, I've got this backwards, don't I? Yes, Abel was a nomadic shepherd. Thank you. Abel was a nomadic shepherd. Cain tilled the ground. And so what happened was Seth's ancestors were saying, why are we different from those people over there? Why do they sit there and just farm all the time and don't move anywhere, whereas we're constantly moving and moving our sheep, and as usually happens, the sheep end up where? On the farmland, and then it causes problems. Like the old movie, Oklahoma. Remember that? Well, the farmer and the cowman should be friends. That's really all this is about. But the people who in the relationships are writing the story get to tell the story. I quoted Jean-Paul Sartre in my book, Complaint-Free Relationships, because he said, hell is other people. That puts it pretty succinctly, especially when you're driving. Hell is other people. If there was nobody else on the road, I would have a wonderful driving experience. The thing is, they're thinking the exact same thing about me. And so I've tried to figure out, why are we more like, let's say, dogs than cats? Why are we pack animals? Because when you read the story of Cain and Abel, the thing that Cain is upset about is that God is going to ostracize him, is going to push him out. And he does push him out. And he finds a woman to marry and starts a whole nation, which is interesting because Adam and Eve were the only people. You see how you really have to read this with an open mind? He was afraid of being ostracized. Our biggest fear, I think, fundamentally, and the more I study, is being separated from other people. We live in this balance of people pissing us off and needing people, wanting people, needing people. I once heard a thing about tickling. I once heard a news story about tickling because my brother used to tie me up when I was a boy and tickle me until I cried. It wasn't a good experience. So I've always wondered about tickling. And have you noticed if somebody came up and did this to me right now, I would go jumping across the room. But I can do it to myself. Have you ever noticed that? And you know why? You need an element of surprise to be tickled. And I think we all want to be tickled. We all want people around us that are going to surprise us and tickle us and come up with unique ways of looking at things. I think that is one of the main reasons we want to be around people, is so they can tickle us. And the second reason is something I learned when Marty and I spent time on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation 2 years ago at Thanksgiving. I was talking to a man there who had been studying for 15 years to be a medicine man. And what they do is they give you one particular root or one particular herb, and then you spend your life with that root or herb trying to figure out its. No one teaches you and tells you this is what it's for. You experiment with it. That's your main training to be a medicine man. Then you're taught the other things. So I asked the guy, I said, well, so you guys don't have a medicine man, or yours will retire and when you step in? He says, no, we always have to have two. I said, but the tribe's not that big. We're talking modern day Lakota Indians on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. The tribe's not that big. He said, no, but you always have to have someone to heal the medicine man. You see, we can't tickle ourselves. But I also believe we can't heal ourselves. It's really kind of funny when you think about it that I write what are considered self-help books. Technically, you should write your own. They're not. They're books that I write based on literally hundreds of books and seminars and things that I've read and done and everything else from other people. Other people want to heal themselves, and in the process, they will heal us through their example. But we need other people not only to be examples, but to process with, to be our friends, to be our energetic partners. I truly believe we all need at least one, preferably no more than 3 energetic partners. That's a person that you share everything with. Good, bad, up, down, everything. That person literally vibrates with your energy. Ideally, it's your spouse. It can be a best friend, it can be a brother, a sister, a mom, but somebody who vibrates with that energy. We all need that. That heals us. So I want to share something with you that I have learned recently that I consider to be a very practical approach to when people come and give you feedback, which is, let's say, difficult to hear. Does that ever happen to you? I should ask, do any of us have parents? Or did we have teachers? Or do we have helpful friends who are always trying to give us feedback? I have a neighbor, and I really do appreciate him. And when we moved into the house, he was fixing up. We moved in, and then he moved in about, 6 months later. And he started fixing up his house, going around fixing things. And then he noticed that I needed some tree limbs cut, just like he needed some tree limbs cut, So he gave me a list of the tree limbs that I should have cut. Then he started giving me a list of other things I should do around my house. Sometimes people do that. They're wanting to be helpful. Other times, it's just somebody giving you some feedback. So I really am going to tell you what has worked for me lately, and it's amazing. And it's, I've got an acronym. It's the best approach clearly. It's the best approach clearly. Say that with me. It's the best approach clearly. One more time. The best approach clearly. I want you to remember TBAC. The best approach clearly. Say it one more time. The best approach clearly. Now, when someone comes up to you and tells you something that is difficult for you to hear, chances are they've had plenty of time to rehearse it in their head, but you're often caught off guard. They are often expecting you to react because in most cases, when a person is caught off guard, they do react. So the T in the best approach clearly is the thing that solidifies it and also stops the upset on their part and your part before it can happen. The T stands for thank you. Thank you. Somebody give me an example of some feedback that happens, some negative feedback. Too many things going through your head? Why don't you check your email? Why don't you check your email? Beautiful. That's a very good example. Okay. Thank you. It derails the other person, first of all. It lets them know that you really are interested, because if you jump right to, oh, I'm sorry, or defending yourself or whatever. So the thank you is, the T in the best approach clearly is thank you. The B in best is because. Thank you for telling me this, because it's important that I know how you feel, because I want to stay connected with my emails. When Marty gives me, I've used this, it works. Marty says, would you please do such and such? Thank you. Because it's important to me that I know what you want. So the T is, the B is, because, and then comes the one we often want to put first. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You don't say that at first because that almost sounds dismissive. I'm sorry. You say, thank you, because it's important to me that I know that. I'm sorry that happened. Okay? The A is apologize. The best approach, clearly. Thank you, because, apologize, and then the last thing is, by the way, I'm curious if any of you will actually try this.
Oh, yeah.
You know why? Good. Will says he's going to do it. You know why? Because it works every time. It will take the drama out of your life, and then you're stuck with, you know what, maybe I just kind of like the drama. I got to work on that. Because that's true for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, here comes my arguing buddy, also known as my mother. What would we do if we didn't argue? You're left with a whole new life. So if you want a whole new life, the T stands for thank you. Because, apologize, I'm sorry, and then the C, which is collaborate. Collaborate. Could you please let me know when I do that again? Because obviously I'm not aware of it. Or could you please give me feedback so that I know how I'm doing in this? Would you help me with this? Typically, when someone comes and gives us feedback, you need to put the dishes in the sink. I totally made that up, by the way. You need to put the dishes in the sink. We either go to, I'm sorry, or more typically, we explain away why we did it. I was very busy. And if that doesn't work, we usually go to, well, I remember you do it too. Do you see how all this can be taken away with, thank you for letting me know that, because it's important that I do my fair share around here. I'm sorry. If I forget again, would you please let me know? You know what the other person does? Sure. People are here to tickle us. People are here to heal us. And in the process, they're going to piss us off. And we're going to piss them off. If we can learn little things that help the relationship. Thank you, because, I'm sorry, let's collaborate. Apologize, let's collaborate. By the way, what I've just taught you is what best practices for customer service at reps are taught at Amazon, Google, Apple. Thank you, because, I'm sorry, let's collaborate. You can transform your interactions and start having the ones we're supposed to have, which are fun and good and healthy and exploratory and passionate and joyous. That sounds like a reason to be around people. Wouldn't you agree? Good. Take somebody's hand. Let's close in prayer. And so, Infinite Spirit, we acknowledge and give thanks for the hand of God which we now hold. And let us not forget that the other person is holding God's hand as well. That we are an expression of you. If God is everywhere equally present, then we are filled to the brim with Godness. As we remember that in our relationships and interactions with others, they become more sacred. They become more divine. We say namaste, which means the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.